This is the Well Body Podcast with your host, Renee, the place where everyday women learn how to stop running on empty, reset their energy, nourish their bodies, and feel strong again. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Well Body Podcast. This is episode 3 of our gut health series, and today we're talking about something that affects every woman listening, and that is your hormones. Specifically, what your gut has to do with estrogen, which is one of your sex hormones, why PMS, heavy periods, acne, and mood swings often start in the gut, and why constipation and bloating are not normal, and why calorie restriction is often making your hormone symptoms worse. If you've ever thought, my hormones are crazy, my PMS is just who I am, or this is just part of being a woman, then this episode is for you, because your gut and your hormones are in constant conversation, and most women are trying to fix hormone symptoms without ever looking at digestion. So let's change that right now. Okay, let's start with something called the estrogen. Now, don't let that word scare you. Your estrogen is simply the collection of gut bacteria that help metabolize and regulate estrogen in your body. So here's how it works in real life. Your body produces estrogen, your liver processes it, then it sends it to the gut to be excreted. But here's the catch. If your gut bacteria are out of balance, or if you're constipated or your digestion is sluggish, it gets reabsorbed back into circulation, meaning you can end up with estrogen dominance, heavy periods, breast tenderness, mood swings, acne, and painful PMS, even if your blood tests are technically normal. So when women say my hormones feel off, sometimes it's not production, it's clearance, and clearance happens in the gut. So how can we make this practical? If you are going to the toilet less than once a day, bloated most afternoons, super gassy after all the meals that you consume, living on coffee and stress, under eating fiber, eating very low carb for long periods of time, chronically dieting and on and off fad diets, you're likely impairing hormone detoxification. Because we need adequate fiber, we need a healthy gut bacteria, we need daily bowel movements, we need proper liver support, and we need enough calories to help eliminate hormones efficiently. When that system slows down, hormones recirculate and symptoms rise. This is why women often notice PMS worsening during dieting phases, acne flaring during stress, and period pain intensifying during high stress and low food intake times in their lives. The gut is not separate from your cycle, and it's so deeply involved in it. So if you're wanting to have better nutrition to support your hormones, then we need to look at how we're eating to nourish our gut microbiome and our gut, and not just focusing on the calories that we eat, making sure we're getting the calories we need to quote unquote hit our fat loss goals, and just eating whatever fits our macros. So this is why quality and the types of foods that we eat do matter at least 90% of the time. Okay, so let's talk specifically PMS, because when the gut and gut health is compromised, we often see increased inflammation, blood sugar instability, impaired estrogen metabolism, meaning your body finds it hard to metabolize the excess estrogen that your body produces during the first half of your cycle, and reduced serotonin production. And here's something most women don't actually know. Around 90% of serotonin, which is your feel-good neurotransmitter, is produced in the gut. So when your gut is inflamed or imbalanced, your mood then suffers too, which means more irritability, more anxiety, more emotional reactivity in the luteal phase, and lower stress tolerance. So women often blame their hormones, but it's often these things that are so overlooked, and that is your hormones, plus your gut health, plus your blood sugar, plus stress, all layered together. So there's this connection between it all, as you can see right now with what I'm describing. So there's also the heavy periods and fiber conversation we need to have too, because fiber is not just for regularity, meaning you go to the toilet regular. It binds to excess estrogen in the gut and helps to eliminate it. Now, if you're eating at least 12 to 15 grams of fiber a day, and you're eating mostly processed carbohydrates and very little plant diversity, minimal legumes, seeds, and vegetables, you are not giving your body the tools that it needs. Now, I aim for women to work towards 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day, and ideally 30 different plant foods per week. Not overnight, because it's quite intense when you think about 30 different plant varieties, especially when the majority of people in New Zealand specifically are only really getting 6% of their daily fiber needs. Well, 6% of people are getting enough fruit and vegetables to help with their fiber intake. And that is nowhere near enough. Okay? So it is a lot to work towards, but that is what we want to gradually work towards in order to ensure we are getting enough fiber in our day and we are getting enough variety in terms of plants. This is not about extremes, though. It's about creating diversity because your microbes thrive on variety. I don't know if you've heard me talk about gut health before, but I always explain it as like a little garden, and this garden needs to flourish, and it's not going to flourish with dry soil and very limited diversity. It's going to flourish with the different colors, different plants, different things that you feed the soil so that it thrives. It's the same with your gut, what goes on inside you. Because when your microbes thrive, your hormones regulate more smoothly. Those little microbes that live inside you, which sounds so weird, right? They are so important. They are so, so important. So we need to feed those little microbes like you would feed your dog or your cat or your fish, okay? So it's also really important that we touch on calorie restriction and hormone chaos because this is a really important part. Chronic calorie restriction all the time raises cortisol, slows thyroid function, reduces progesterone, disrupts ovulation, alters gut motility, and reduces microbial diversity, which means the more aggressively you diet, the worse your PMS can become. And this is why so many women will notice that their periods disappear altogether, their PMS symptoms worsen, sleep starts to decline, bloating increases, and anxiety rises. When they're being super strict, underfueling becomes a stressor, and stress alters the digestion, and the altered digestion impacts hormone metabolism, and it's this vicious cycle. And this is why tracking calories is not the be-all and end-all. You cannot diet your way to hormonal harmony, if you like. You build it through eating adequate fuel, eating enough protein, eating enough fiber, healthy fats, focusing on diversity so that you're getting different micronutrients and you're focusing on micronutrients, your strength training to build muscle because muscle is like your longevity organ and we as women need muscle. We need to prioritize being strong. When you're getting enough sleep and recovering and your nervous system is regulated. So all of these things are so important when it comes to your gut health and when it comes to having better hormones. Now, there is a time and place for calorie restriction, right? If you're in a fat loss phase and you're being specific about getting there, then yeah, a little calorie reduction is going to be needed to hit that target. But where the problem lies is when people try to do this without support, without help from a professional, and they just go onto MyFitnessPal and start tracking 1,200 calories a day. And MyFitnessPal does not know your lean body mass, it doesn't know your fat mass, it doesn't know your total body weight, it doesn't know these things about you, it doesn't know what you get up to in life, it doesn't know about the stress you have in your life. And so you just enter in your weight and your age and your gender, and then it will spit out a calorie deficit for you to follow. And then everything starts to fall apart. You start to feel like shit mentally. You start to feel overwhelmed. You feel underfueled. And then you lose your period, it's quite a common one. So we need to be out of this cycle of thinking we need to eat as little as possible when we actually should be focusing on as women is getting strong as we possibly can, building muscle, looking like Wonder Woman to some degree, and eating food that fuels our microbes and also fuels our muscles and fuels our body and our brain. And if we change the tune around food and exercise being about this, in turn, we're going to have better periods, better digestion, better gut health. We're going to feel better mentally. We're going to cope better with life. So tracking calories, no, it's not the be-all and end-all. And like I said, it does hold a place. Sometimes for some people, a calorie deficit doesn't work either. because they constantly feel restricted. And so sometimes simply just saying to someone, I need you to eat 3 meals with this, this, and this, and this on the plate is what you need to do, and they a day, and they start to see great results. So it's not the be all and end all. And I really want to encourage women to stop just jumping on MyFitnessPal and feeling as though they need to eat as low as they possibly can just to fit into this category that they feel they need to fit into. Okay, true health is anchored in a regulated nervous system first and foremost. It is anchored in when you are eating for health and not eating to look as lean as possible. It's when you are training to be the strongest version of yourself, to be able to do things that you never thought you could do and challenge yourself. So change the way you think and feel about health and well-being and what it really truly is and what it looks like. Okay? Now, for my perimenopause woman, and every woman at some point in time is going to come to this phase too, and it does happen in the late 30s. If you're in that 39, 38-year-old kind of stage and you're about to hit the 40s, you'll probably start to notice some differences. And I see this in a lot of my clients, especially the ones that are close to their 40s now, they're starting to notice differences. So it's really important that you do tune into perimenopause because it's going to happen to you at some point. Okay. Now, for my perimenopause woman, as I said, as estrogen fluctuates and eventually declines, gut diversity often declines with it. And this can mean increased bloating, more food sensitivities, slower digestion, increased inflammation, and then weight redistribution. Weight redistribution. I can't say that word today. Anyway, you get what I mean. But supporting gut health during perimenopause becomes even more important than it was 5 years ago, okay? We need you to be focusing on protein for muscle preservation, fiber for hormone clearance. I need you to think about polyphenols, things like berries, olive oil, cacao, herbs, think deep purple kind of vegetables, those types of things. Your rich omega-3, beautiful fatty acids. I need you to think of phytoestrogens like flax seeds and legumes. Legumes are things like beans and like lentils and black beans and chickpeas, and resistance training, okay? The gut becomes a buffer during hormonal shifts, and women who support their microbiome often experience smoother transitions through this phase in life. So at the moment, you'll probably see on social media, there's a massive hype around like perimenopause programs and menopause programs, and you need to be doing this and you need to be doing that. And like, yes, there are certain things that we need women to be doing during certain phases, but it actually isn't that much difference. Now, if we can get all women to be focusing on resistance training, eating enough fiber, eating to fuel their gut microbes, and eating enough protein to preserve their muscles, then by the time you get to this phase in your life, those habits are already going to be in place, and you know that it's even more important as you get older. So think about, what am I currently doing for my gut health? Am I eating enough vegetables and fiber? Do I even eat anything in the polyphenol family? Am I eating enough phytoestrogens like flax seeds and legumes? Do I eat enough protein? Like, start to analyze what you're actually doing and then go, okay, where can I start to make a change from tomorrow? It might just be that, okay, when I have my yogurt in the afternoon, I'm going to add a handful of blueberries to it. You know what I mean? So don't overhaul what you're doing overnight, but start to look at what you're doing now and look at where you can start to make little changes. So if there's one thing that you can do throughout perimenopause and coming up to that phase in your life, it's to start to look at how much fiber, protein you are consuming, and are you resistance training? All right? So important. I actually have a client that I'm working with VIP at the moment, and the goal was to focus on gut health because she's in that perimenopause phase and really, really feeling it, and strength training. And since we have had her on specifically like gut health program for nutrition, which is what most of my recipes are based off anyway, she has seen massive changes in her energy and also her mental well-being. And I think that's the coolest result, right? Because of that, 90% of serotonin is made in your gut, which is your feel-good neurotransmitter, your feel-good hormone. You need to make sure that you're fueling your gut so you feel better, because mental health can decline a bit during that perimenopausal phase because a lot's happening. So important we are focusing on gut health. So what can you do this week? Let's keep it nice and practical. But here are 5 things that you can start immediately. Aim for 1 bowel movement per day minimum. all right? And not just from having caffeine or coffee, all right? Add 1 to 2 extra plant foods to your week. So if you always favor carrots and broccoli and beans every night, I encourage you to add another 2 different types of plants. It could even be black beans. It could even be seeds, some type of seed. It could even be that you have bok choy or some red cabbage. So you're adding in some more plants to the week that you're on what you're already doing. Include 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed daily somewhere, whether you mix it through your yogurt, whether you chuck it in a smoothie. Eat protein at every meal. Every meal you have, you're anchoring it with a source of protein. For example, eggs, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, black beans, lentils, chickpeas, salmon, chicken, lean beef. There's your protein. Make sure you've got a source at every meal, okay? And number 5 is to stop under-eating in the name of quote-unquote being good. You are a good person. You don't need to be good all the time with food. 90% of the time, we want to have our good habits in place, and every now and again, we're enjoying life, okay? Because life's meant to be lived. Life's not meant to be all constricted and restricted. And if your PMS is extreme, painful, or debilitating, please also seek professional support, because symptoms are communication. They're not punishment, and a lot of the time, they are not actually normal. So do not normalize that you always have chronic PMS and you're always in pain and you're bedridden. Like, if that's where you're at, you need to seek some professional support and get help, okay? That's really, really important. And don't just jump on the pill and hope for the best. You need to actually look at, what am I doing with my diet? What am I doing with my exercise routine? How am I feeling with my stress levels? What am I doing to reset my nervous system? Those are the really important things that you need to be focusing on every single day and week so that you feel your best. Before we finish today, I want you to really sit with this. If your periods feel heavy, if your PMS feels extreme, if perimenopause feels chaotic, if your moods feel unpredictable, it may not just be hormones. It may be digestion. It may be inflammation. It may be underfueling. It may be stress layered on top of gut dysfunction. Your gut and your hormones are in constant communication. And when we support the gut, we create smoother cycles, steadier moods, and more resilient energy. Because here's the thing, hormones don't just affect your period, they affect your energy, which is exactly what we're talking about next week. In the next episode, we're diving into why you're tired even if you're eating well, why the green smoothies and healthy salads aren't translating to actual energy, why your digestion, blood sugar, and nervous system might be quietly draining you, and what to do about it. Because eating quote-unquote healthy and feeling energized are not always the same thing. I'll see you in the next episode, and as always, we're building wow bodies, not just smaller ones. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being here. If this episode resonated, please share it with a friend, share it with someone, and if you have time, I would really appreciate it if you hit that notification bell so you know when a new episode is uploaded, and leave me a 5-star review. It means the absolute world. Thank you so much for listening. There are quite a few of you tuning in now, which makes me feel so incredibly grateful. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have the most amazing day, evening, morning, whenever it is that you're listening to this podcast, and I can't wait to have you join in on the next one. Thanks for listening to the Well Body Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a review or share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can find more support, resources, and information on my website at www.beyondthebody.co. Until next time, I look forward to having you in the next episode.